All right, we're live. Hi, everybody. This is Dr. Swetha, and today we are going to be talking about how to get your needs met. And so, the first thing that I want to share with you is that if you are wanting to have your needs met, number one is you need to know what they are, and number two is you need to believe it's possible to have them met. And so, let's talk about number one first, is knowing what they are. Now, I am a life and leadership coach, and I tend to work with go-getters that are other focused. And if you're both of these things, if you're other focused, for example, it might not be so easy for you to be able to identify what your needs are. And so if you're familiar with the spiritual psychological test, the Enneagram, I'm a type 2 on that test, which is the helper. And as a helper, we are incredibly intuitive of other people's needs, but knowing what our own needs is not that easy. And so first I want to talk about that, is like, how do you even identify your needs? And then we'll go in to talk about how to go from thinking having your needs met as being impossible to being possible. So when it comes to being able to identify your needs, if you're somebody that has a challenge with this, one of the best ways to know what your needs are is to look at the situations and circumstances where they were not met. So if you've been in situations where you found yourself feeling resentful, angry, unseen, unheard, you're just plain out exhausted, unappreciated, it's an opportunity for you to actually spend some time reflecting on, getting curious, as opposed to, kind of getting into that space of, you give and give and give, and then you're, again, resentful, or you're feeling exhausted, and then you just have to kind of escape from the situation. I invite you to just get really curious about what led to getting to that place of being resentful or being exhausted, and, get really, really specific. And I'm going to give you an example of this. So for me, one of my kind of core conundrums is that I have a lot that I want to share with the world. Like sharing with you guys, being a life coach, being a leadership coach, it brings me incredible joy. And I'm also a mom. I'm also a wife, and my family is incredibly important to me. Those two things, sharing my gifts in the world, my passions, and being there for my family have always felt like I don't have enough time and support to do those things. Now bring in COVID, and it's like that's even more amplified. And I really believe that everything that's going on in the world is amplifying all of our core issues. And it's gold. It's an opportunity for us to really be able to kind of disrupt our dynamics and patterns that we're so used to being in, and kind of, having an opportunity to grow and create something new. And so my invitation for you is, again, to take some time to reflect. And the way this showed up for me is because one of the other great ways to know if your need is not being met is when you start judging other people that have things that you want. And that's what happened for me. So I recently read the memoir by the famous singer, Grammy Award winner, Alicia Keys. She sang the song This Girl's on Fire. Ironically, the name of her memoir is called More of Myself. And as I was reading her memoir, I found myself like being really inspired by her and rooting for her. She got her first piano when she was 14. She started practicing music. She got a record. It paused. Can you still see me? Oh, hi, Kajal. If you can just put a little heart in the comment to let me know you can still see me. Technology. Anyways, she got her first record contract when she was 16, and then she went, on Oprah when she was 20, and like everything blew up for her then. And this idea of like, doing something that you're really passionate about and sharing it with the world in a big way, like I want that. And that's so exciting for me to have seen that in her. But something shifted. I noticed that when she, the other thing I want to share with you is she also became like a humanitarian. She got really into social justice work, which are also, things that I'm very passionate about. Then I found noticing myself that when she got married and she had her first child, and she continued to be really creative, like making even better music and doing more humanitarian work, having more impact in the world, my kind of inspiration went into judgment. And I started to, have like thoughts like, well, of course she can, because she has money, right? She has, fame. She has all these things. Of course she can do all of these things. But when I got also even really more specific, what really bothered me was that she was also still able to be hands-on, from what she shares in her book, was that, she was very involved in her children's life, and that when she got childcare, it was not like nannies, it was actually family members. And I'm sure she had some nannies as well. And that was what I wanted. That was really the main need that was not being met. And that only came from being curious. And the reason that I learned to go from judgment to curiosity, or the way that I've learned this, came from New York Times bestselling author Jessica Ortner, who wrote a book on weight loss and body confidence. And in that book, she shared that when you judge someone else, you make it unsafe for you to have the very thing that they have. I mean, that's kind of big, right? Take that in for a minute. And it makes total sense. Like, if somebody has the life or the things that you want in your life and you're judging them, that means that if you have those very things, that you will be judged for it. And if you are somebody who is other focused, that cares about other people, that matters to you. And a lot of this is not happening consciously. It's happening kind of in the background. And that's why it takes time to actually slow down and to reflect on your reactions to things, as opposed to, just getting frustrated or just getting angry, but to actually take time to connect with yourself and ask yourself, like, why? Why do I feel, exhausted? Why do I feel resentful? Why do I feel kind of this envy or this judgment towards this person? And this is not an easy thing to do, because we're often not taught to look at our own kind of stuff. And we're sometimes been taught to believe that if we look at that stuff, that means that we're a bad person. But I just really want you to know, like, all of these things are really normal. It's really very human to have these thoughts. And by, not kind of admitting them, that doesn't make them go away. What ends up happening is they run your life. But when you actually just get curious and you look at these things as something that you do, as opposed to who you are, like you're not a jealous person, but you're somebody who gets jealous sometimes, then it kind of takes the weight off. But more importantly, you get gold, you get information about yourself, and then you can create those experiences for yourself as well, which is what I want to share with you about the second thing, right? So one is identifying your needs, and then number two is being able to, or believing that your needs are possible. Now, as I mentioned with you, I'm a go-getter. The people I work with are go-getters. So when it comes to, having needs met or goals or anything, we see a plan. We kind of look at our situation and we create a plan and we make it happen. Now, the thing is, in this situation where what was the thing that I needed, or the thing I wanted, was to have support in childcare, because again, like, this was already an issue for me, but with COVID, and I'm sure if you're a parent, you can relate to this, or if you're living with other people, like, having space and time for yourself, oh my God, so hard, right? On top of that, being a primary educator for a small child, like, even harder. And then number three is, like, you can't actually have people help with childcare because it's unsafe because of the virus. Now, again, going into the specifics, for me, it wasn't just about having childcare. It was about having family being involved in my life. And this actually is impossible because my parents are not around. Where we live, we don't have a lot of family. I have one cousin that's a single mom. My in-laws live in Peru. They're not available. And even if, my brother has two small kids and he lives cross country. So we don't have a lot of family around us. And so if I look at my situation, that need seems impossible to be met. But this is where I want to invite you to a completely new way of having things happen in your life, having your needs met, reaching your goals. And again, if you're a go-getter, you're used to making things happen. But a lot of my coaching philosophy is based on two quotes by the Sufi poet, the mystic Rumi. And his two quotes are, number one is, what you are seeking is seeking you. And the other quote is, your task is not to seek for love, but to look for all the barriers, investigate all the barriers you have created against it. Again, so those two quotes are, what you are seeking is seeking you, and your task is not to seek for love, but to investigate all the barriers you've put up against it. And, it's really, really powerful if you kind of, don't look at this as just some sort of like, an inspirational quote, but really, look at this as a completely new way of living, essentially. It takes you from being a hustler to making life happen to this new place of allowing and trust. And it's simple, but it's not easy because it goes against everything that we're taught. We're always taught that like we make our life happen. And my invitation here is to step into being a co-creator, which means that, it's not just up to you, but there is, whether you want to call it divine intelligence or you want to call it the universe or you want to call it God, that's trying to support you. But the other thing about this is that many of us have been disappointed in our life before. And it could have happened, at a young age. It could happen at any time in your life. And that's where all those barriers come up. And so, it's hard for us to say, I'm going to go for this dream again. I'm going to ask for this need to be met because I've had this happen in the past. I went for it and I got hurt. And none of us want to get hurt. And to open up to trusting is not always an easy thing to do. But it's so worth it, so incredibly worth it. This is a practice that I've been doing for almost the last 10 years because I used to be that go-getter that was always kind of other focused. And what I've realized is that when I learn to give to myself, and this is really about the art of receiving, when I'm able to really receive, then when we give, we're actually giving from this place of fullness. We're giving from a place of wholeness. And that is actually true service. Giving from a place of sacrifice, giving from a place of obligation, which have been really celebrated in our world. I mean, if you think about the archetype of the mother who's the giver, right? What do we always celebrate? It's how much she's sacrificed herself. Well, what if there was another way to give? What if we could give from a place where we didn't have to sacrifice ourselves, we didn't have to deplete ourselves? And again, the question is how. And it's what I've shared with you, these two quotes that, are about stepping into being a co-creator. And so let me make this more concrete for you. So in my situation, again, my kind of conflict was I want to create in the world. I want to share my gifts in the world, but I have my child at home all the time that needs so much from me. I'm his primary educator. I have no space in my house. My husband's working all the time, and I don't have any close family members to, help out and be engaged with my son. And when I got curious about it, the invitation here is, and this is where you go from impossible to possible, is that instead of focusing on how it's supposed to happen and then your mind saying, well, you don't have this and you don't have that, like I don't have the money or I don't have the support or I don't have, friends or whatever it is, that's where we like to focus, is what we don't have. But if you connect to the vibration and say, okay, this is what I want. I want the essence of family and support in my life for me, okay? Then what happens is you step into this new realm of, possibility. And in that realm, what happens is three things. Either you will get an idea, a sign will come up to guide you, or somebody will share something with you to get, to lead you towards that thing that you're seeking. Because this goes back to, again, what you are seeking is seeking you. And these are, soul desires. I'm not talking about, I want $1 million. I'm talking about those things that are really, really deep in your heart. What would that $1 million give you? What's at the real essence of what it is that you are desiring? And so for me, again, it was like just the support to be able to be in the world the way that I want to be. And what happened for me was I got an idea. So I call these creative solutions, like SOUL, because they're coming from the soul. And what came to me was when we first moved from New York to California, I met a new friend. She was a pastor. Her husband is Peruvian, like my husband, and she has 2 sons. And one of her sons, energetically, is really similar to my son. She's like family. She feels like family when I'm around her. And so that's what I mean about when you're connecting to the vibration of what you want, as opposed to being attached to the form of it. And this is this is how you can continue to create in your life, even during a pandemic, even during all this world, just turning upside down. If you stay true to the essence of who you are and what you're being called to bring in the world and create, then the form can change, and you will be able to adapt to that if you're not, again, so focused on form. And then when and then again, this requires giving space to connect to yourself and get curious. And so the other thing that came to me, so I said, oh, okay, and when I thought about this friend, she has a church in this beautiful space where there's nature, and her home has it's just so beautiful. And they have Wi-Fi outside in an open space amongst redwood trees. And so I was like, maybe I can co-work with her and at the same time have our kids play in a safe way, ride bikes, etc. Because the other thing that was really frustrating was that I didn't want my son to be in front of technology all day long. Like, he's an active child, and I wanted to continue with that even when it didn't seem possible because of COVID. I was tapping into something that was bigger, that goes beyond the restrictions of the world. And that's what I am asking you to do as well for yourself. And the other thing, so when I sat with that, the other thing that popped up for me was, some other needs that I would need a new computer, and I would also need having food meal sent to me, a food prep meal sent to me, because the other thing that was frustrating me was that I felt like all I was doing was cooking and cleaning all day long, and that was taking away my time as well. And over the last year, I've completely detoxed my health and my home. I've had amazing results, and I wanted to keep in that lifestyle, but the time constraints of having to cook and clean all the time were what was frustrating me. Wouldn't you know it, I got an email from my doctor that a chef that she works with was offering food prep, very inexpensive, all organic food delivered to your home. And she, she's a chef, so she creates from this place of passion and love, which is really important to me. And so I signed up for that. And when I approached my husband about getting a new computer, because I don't have one that, I could be mobile with, he met me with support. And I know for a fact that's because I allowed myself to have that desire. Normally, I would feel too guilty to invest in myself. But because I'm coming from this place of, well, when I serve myself, I serve others, right? So when I'm getting the computer for myself, it's allowing me to also take my son with me and have this healthier experience. I was met with total support. But I can guarantee you, if you don't accept your own desires and you judge your own desires when you're trying to ask somebody else to help you meet them, you will get reflected back to you what you feel about yourself. Like, I don't deserve this. And so, this is something that comes up a lot that I've heard from clients, is that when things are too good, when things are in flow, there's this feeling of like, well, I don't deserve this. And what I want to say to you is that that's not true. It's just a message that you've probably received growing up, something that maybe you interpreted from if your parents said no to you about certain things, or you've been in situations where your needs were not met when you were younger. It's like you create a belief in your brain that means it's not allowed for my needs to be met. Or if I want something to happen, I have to make it happen myself. And so really, by opening your heart and allowing for a new experience, you're retraining your nervous system to be able to receive. And this, again, is simple, but it's not easy. It's vulnerable. It's really vulnerable, but it's so worth it. I just want to tell you, it is so worth it. My life has improved so much when I've opened up to this new way of creating, to being a co-creator and learning to allow life to give to me. And I've had so much joy in teaching other people about this as well. I can share so many stories with you, which I will be doing. I'm offering a free workshop, August 15th, titled Honor You, a virtual workshop for women with demanding lives and work. And we will be going deeper into some of the things that I've shared here with you. I'll be holding your hand through the process as well, because again, I know this is kind of a new way of operating in the world, and it takes time and it takes practice and it takes community to be able to say, hey, I believe being of service comes from a place of wholeness and fullness as opposed to sacrifice. And, if you're like me, you hate the word selfish, and sometimes, having your needs met can feel really self-indulgent. But this is, again, a new way of serving the world. It's not selfish, but it's self-serving, like I'm serving myself and I'm serving others. And it's just, you don't have a selfish bone in your body if you're in my community. If you're other focused, anything you do is always going to have some element of being about others in it. So, allow yourself to really take that in as well. And again, we're going to, I know this is, kind of like a new way of thinking. So take some time to rewatch this, digest it. I also have a book called I Still Haven't Found What I'm Looking For, Now What? And on my website, you can download the first chapter, and there's an exercise that kind of takes you through this process. It's a similar, it's not the exact same tool that I shared with you, but it's very, very similar. So if you're somebody who needs time to digest and you need some prompts, download it. It's free on my website, drswethacoach.com. While you're there, register for the workshop on August 15th, Honor You. And that's going to be small and intimate. It's going to be live on Zoom at 10 a.m. in the morning in California time. And I'm going to be doing one-on-one coaching with people as well. It's going to be completely transformative. My hope for you is that you feel good about having your needs met. And that, again, comes from knowing what your needs are. And number two, feeling like it's possible to have them met. And so go back, watch this, and let me know. Let me know if anything's come up for you. If you have any questions, just send me a DM or email me or whatever. And for all of those of you that were online, thank you so much for being here.